Welcome to Cincinnati Soccer Talk, the podcast covering all things soccer in the Queen City. So get in touch, soccer fans. Email us at feedback@cincinnatiSoccerTalk.com. Now, here's your host, Nick Suberling.
Hey, happy 2019, everybody. Happy New Year. Welcome back. It is good to be back here on Cincinnati Soccer Talk Live on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter / Periscope, whatever you want to call it. We've got an action-packed show for you. It's a big day for Major League Soccer. Big day for FC Cincinnati as the full 2019 regular season schedule was released. And, of course, we've got a big day coming up this Friday as FC Cincinnati takes part in their very first Super Draft with the first overall pick. And so we are going to be visiting here in just a few moments with Travis Clark from TopDrawerSoccer.com. Does a great job covering the Super Draft, and not just the draft, but collegiate soccer and everything you want to know about the soccer here in the country. You can find it, at least about the players potentially being in Major League Soccer. You can find it over at TopDrawerSoccer.com. So we'll be joined by Travis here in just a few moments. Just a reminder, we are monitoring the chats on Facebook and YouTube tonight. You can always hit us up on Twitter as well at Cincy Soccer Talk. Captain. Hey, we have an episode captain this week, Dave Dorsey. Thank you so much for your support of CST. To learn more on how you can wear the armband for an episode of Cincinnati Soccer Talk, head over to our website, our new website, over at CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com/support. All right, let's welcome in my cast of characters this week. I start first and foremost. We'll go ladies first, shall we? Trisha, welcome back to the show, Trisha. How are you? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. How are you doing, Subes?
I'm doing well. How are you? Did you have a good holiday season?
I did. I got a lot of sleep, a lot of food, and a lot of FCC-related items from Santa. So it was great.
Like what? What did you get?
Well, my dad actually made me this really awesome Excel file. He's spent months on it, and he basically loaded every single soccer league in the country, players, rosters, schedules. So I can go in there and search for anyone and find anything.
Wow.
And it's really awesome.
Nice.
So
you might have to help us out with that.
It's on my work laptop right now. It kind of gets a little wonky with my Mac, which is a bit of a bummer. But it's so cool. He spent so much time on it, and I love it.
Well, really cool. Well, I'm glad to have you back, and looking forward to getting your thoughts on the schedule today, as well as everything that's been going on with FC Cincinnati over the last few weeks.
I do have many thoughts.
Oh, you do have many thoughts. Well, that's good. We'll save that for here in a little bit. Let's also welcome back to the show. It's been a while, but this man, he's always a legend in my eyes. Brian Weigel. Brian, how are you, buddy?
Doing well. I am alive, so that's good. I do want to know, though, Trisha, what's it like to have a supportive family in terms of your soccer love? I mean, that's just something I'm not used to, man. It's incredible.
No, it's great. I mean, my mom and my dad both support me a lot. My cat even supports me. He knocks over my microphone. No, it's great. As you know, my mom goes to all of the matches, and my dad is just the most supportive person in my life. He would pretty much support anything I do. So it's awesome.
That's pretty stellar. No, I love my family. I'm giving them a little grief, but we got this new house I moved into. It was supposed to have a podcasting studio. Now it's the kids' playroom, and I have a little desk in the corner. So that's something. So that's cool. But
parenthood.
Dude, I'll tell you what, man. I opened that door and just I can't turn back. So hey, but no, glad to be back. Glad to be back on here, and glad to be back with Subes and Trisha. And talk a whole lot of FC Cincinnati for a time.
Yes, I'm glad as well. And as we again, we're trying something new tonight as far as a live stream, so you're gonna have to be patient with us for a little bit. I know that as we move forward here into 2019, we've got big plans for everything going on with the show. So you're just gonna have to be patient with us as we work through the issues tonight. I think I got them resolved already. But thank you, Andy Rosen, for pointing that out. All right, so it was announced today, FC Cincinnati, the new 2019 MLS schedule. We're just going to go over a couple of the highlights of what has, as far as the schedule goes. I'll start first with the first couple of matches. They obviously are going to go on the road to Seattle on March 2nd, which we knew about already. We also already knew about the road trip to Atlanta the following week. And then the home opener on March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, for FC Cincinnati against the Portland Timbers. Then as you move on to later on in the schedule, FC Cincinnati is going to take on New York City FC. They're going to, guess what? They thought they were getting away from playing on a ball diamond. Well, nope. They get to do it at least one more time against New York City FC on June 6th. Then the LA Galaxy make the trip to Nippert Stadium on June 22nd. A lot of people very excited about Zlatan Ibrahimovic potentially, and I'm going to say potentially, playing in that match at Nippert Stadium on June 22nd. And then FC Cincinnati goes to Minnesota on June 29th, and their first ever game at Allianz Arena, Minnesota United's first in new stadium there up in the north. Then we know about August. August is now going to be known forever, at least for the 2019 season, as Hell is Real, as two Ohio derbies take part in a matter of 15 days. The first one on August 10th in Columbus, the second one on August 25th in Cincinnati. And then to round out the schedule for FC Cincinnati, they will host Atlanta United on August 18th. And then on Decision Day, October 16th, they will head to DC United to end the year against Wayne Rooney and DC United. So those are just a couple of the highlights, or at least some of the games I thought were kind of spectacular from a scheduling standpoint. Bri, did any of those matchups really stand out to you?
Man, every single matchup on here is incredible just because we don't have to go, and I'm going to borrow this from our buddies, the War Pigs. We don't have to go to Harrisburg or Bethlehem anymore, so this is freaking awesome. I'm not going to lie. I'm jacked for every single one on here. I don't know. I don't know if I can have a favorite. I'm pretty amped up for that first game. That's for darn sure, though.
Yeah. And how about you, Trisha? Anything that really stood out to you?
I am excited for LA Galaxy and Chicago Fire. I love Schweinsteiger. I can't help it. So any chance I get to see him is going to be exciting for me. So
The Fire are terrible, though.
Well, yeah, but I like Schweinsteiger. It's not a club thing; it's a person.
I'm actually. I think the team I'm most jacked to see come through here in early in the season is Sporting KC, because I respect the heck out of a lot of those players. I love Peter Vermees. I mean, that's a legacy club that I think a lot of people want to become, or FC Cincinnati become. So I'm really excited to see those guys. You know, people say Zlatan. I don't know if he's ever going to play on the surface here at Nippert since it's turf, but I guess you never know. The $6 million man and his hamstrings. I'm not sure they're gonna risk that. But outside of that, Red Bulls. You know, I think they're kind of a rival. I really want to see that game become something in May. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be a heck of a year, man. You remember how like we used to get excited for like TFC2 might come through here. Oh, we might see somebody. Hey, we might see Nick Hagland. I'm jacked up. You know, I was all Mr. Depressed last time. Last time I was on the show with some signings. So this is kind of cool to really feel and see how this is coming through. Take this for what it is. I kind of wanted to play some of the really good teams during like that Gold Cup time and in mid June through late July. Of course, they take a little bit of a break, and during that stretch, we do host LA Galaxy, so we might miss the Dos Santoses. We might miss a couple other players, which might be a little bit disappointing. But you know, take this for what it is. At least we don't have to like miss like Toronto coming in and them being without Bradley or Josie, because I do want to see a lot of those clubs. I mean, okay, Houston Dynamo, July 6th at home. Who are we really gonna miss? That's a U.S. player on. You know, DeMarcus Beasley's not going to be going to the Gold Cup, so. Yeah, I think we got a lot to see this year. Again, I'm not sure what I'm expecting in terms of success, but it's going to be fun to see.
Do you want to know my favorite part?
Go for it.
We don't have to see Tucker Hume.
Oh, jeez.
What's his nickname? What's his nickname?
You know I can't say that on air.
Beep. Hume.
Yes.
All right. Anyway.
You'll have to change out one letter in his first name.
It's very creative. Had to really reach for that one.
Anyway, I'm excited for. I've got family who lives in Colorado. My sister lives out in Colorado, so I'm excited for the Denver trip.
Are you going
for the Rapids? I'm going to try to get out there at the first part of June, depending on what's going on here at home. We're going to do our best to get out there. Obviously, I'm excited about anytime Wayne Rooney comes to town. Hopefully, he'll play on that turf. I think he will. And you brought up a good point, too, about the Gold Cup, Bri. And with the Dos Santoses being potentially gone and maybe a couple of other players, there is the potential that maybe Zlatan kind of has to play because they'll be shorthanded. Yeah. So I still don't think he's going to play, but that's just my thought on the Galaxy. One thing that really caught my eye today, and looking at the schedule, 9 out of the first 10 games for FC Cincinnati this year are against 2018 playoff contestants. I mean, that you talk about a brutal start to the year, Bri. We knew it wasn't going to be easy for FC Cincinnati in the first year, but really this is going to set the tone potentially for June, July, August, and September.
Debbie Downer over here, the TV schedule came out today too. And our first 3 matches, at Seattle, at Atlanta, and then home versus Portland are all going to be national TV games. And there's a very realistic chance that we go 0-3 in those games. Then you add in, okay, thank goodness we have to go travel to the Revs in match 4, which is going to be tough because anything on the road. But, you got Philly, who's up and coming. You got Sporting KC. You got to go at LA. It's going to be crazy. Of course, on my birthday, it's going to be at New York Red Bulls, so that's going to be even better. But, yeah, it's going to be a murderer's row to start the year. My favorite quote today, I think Pat Brennan put it, or I don't know if it was a quote or he put the words out, but from Jeff Birding. This is interesting, considering his movement with coaches earlier in the year. He would not put any jobs at risk with the start of the year, and he's going to stick to the plan. So I guess that kind of takes a little bit of pressure off Alan Koch. Yeah. In terms of the first 10 games. But I thought that was interesting. He would come out and have to say something like that or put it on, Pat Brennan's Twitter. So, but we'll see. Yeah, definitely going to be tough hill to climb.
4 ESPN nationally televised games this year, 3 FS1 nationally televised games. So the country is going to be getting a good opportunity to see FC Cincinnati this summer here in Major League Soccer. One thing that really stood out to me also is the fact that both Hell is Real derbies are 15 days apart. It's going to be great from a hype standpoint, but I almost think Hell is Real is going to have some Hell is Real fatigue come August. Trisha, what do you think?
No, I agree. I think having them both within 2 weeks is probably not the best choice. I feel like it could lose some of its allure, if you will, because it's one of those you're waiting for it, and then 2 weeks, I feel like it might fizzle. Time will tell. Yeah. But I'm excited. I will obviously be at both of them, so I'm looking forward to it.
There's no way that people don't go to these games. They're going to be massive on both sides. They're in August, right before school starts. In some case, I think even the game when we host them, school will probably be in session. So they're going to be massive games. The Sunday night national TV game here is just an amazing stage. I think the scheduling gods did well on that. Of course, that first game being so close together, it is what it is. If something like negative happens in that first game, okay, that could be tough, you know, in terms of, managing fans. But let's just say that first game's awesome, and then there is a little bit of chippiness. That game 2 is going to be stellar. So is it a perfect scenario? No. Is it bad? No. But, it's going to be – it's a good time of the year to have these 2 huge rivalry games because it's kind of going into the dog days of summer, later on in the season when some people might need a little bit of extra hype. So I think it's a good chance to really get things going. And honestly, that I wonder if UC students will be back for that home game here in Nippert. So that could be a massive, massive match.
Yeah. We're monitoring the comments on YouTube and Facebook. So again, get your thoughts in. This is from Matt Weirman. It says Hell is real. Easy for me to say. Is in the hottest month. Go figure. So you got that. Scott Wilson says half of Matt Free, orange and blue would be crazy. We'll need a big fan section, I think. Yeah, that is going to be an intriguing matchup. The only thing I'm disappointed about from a scheduling standpoint is that second Hell is Real match at Nippert Stadium is on a Sunday night at 8 o'clock, which is going to be next to impossible for me to be at because now I got to take the day off work Monday, and it's just that's the only thing I'm bummed about. And yeah, Brian, I'm going to be Debbie Downer tonight. What can I say? That's
fine. I mean, it's. I mean, even if you look at it like as a parent, like getting the kids ready for school and everything, yeah, that kind of stinks too. When's Labor Day? I don't know, but I think it's gonna be massive, man. It's gonna be a huge turnout for that. I'm looking up Labor. Oh no, Monday, September 2nd. You're a week off. Sorry, pal.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, it's going to be the primetime game. I think people are going to get out and really just flock to it. I mean, of course, FC Cincinnati, hopefully it will be at a point where they're going to be able to iron things out a little bit, maybe get their stride going towards the end of the year. It's after the summer break, so maybe the new DP might be coming through.
Maybe.
So I think there could be a lot of positives about that. Again, the whole 15 days apart kind of stinks. Maybe it'd been a little bit better be 30, but it's not the end of the world. Yeah. At least it's not like week 3 or week 2 and then like week 30.
Yeah.
So I'd rather have it be closer than that far apart.
Yeah, understood. One other note today from the Major League Soccer offices, and during the broadcast, they mentioned that they're going to be introducing flex scheduling for late in the season. So leading up to Decision Day on October 6th, so starting September 5th, there's some matches that might get moved around because of the TV deals and people wanting the best matchups being on the primetime slots. So stay tuned for some potential movement as far as the schedule goes. But we want to hear from you. Let us know, feedback at CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com. What matches you're most looking forward to, whether that be home matches at Nippert, or maybe you're planning on making an away trip with your family this summer. Again, that email address is feedback@CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com.
Sorry, before we transition off to this, I apologize. The only depressing thing I think I see in this whole deal is that we have Atlanta United on a Wednesday in September. That kind of stinks to me. Wednesday, September 18th, at home versus Atlanta.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be, people look at the different sides of the coin. Okay, maybe huge team, maybe we get a good turnout for a midweek game, but I'd rather have that like a Saturday, big turnout. I think that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I think it would be better if we switched that game with the Chicago Fire match following it that weekend.
Well,
I didn't even know Chicago had a team anymore, honestly.
Well, the thing I think that there's probably a factor in that scheduling date is probably a UC football game. So that's probably why it's on a Wednesday night and not on a Saturday or a Sunday night. So
Major League Soccer versus I can't do it. I was gonna make a joke about the league, but I gotta be friends with our UC people, and I like UC.
All right. On that note, we move along.
I'm having a little fun now.
Send your emails to feedback@CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com, and I will gladly forward them on to our good buddy Brian Weigel. As we mentioned earlier on in the show, we are pleased to be joined here on the King's Hammer Hotline by Travis Clark. He's the director of content over at TopDrawerSoccer.com, and he joins us now. Travis, welcome to Cincinnati Soccer Talk. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Oh, we are doing fantastic now that you're here, Travis. I'd imagine this has got to be like your Super Bowl, man. This is your time to shine. Are you ready to take a break at all, or are you just soaking it all in?
I'm always a little bit relieved when drafts are over because I cover the women's and the men's NWSL and MLS. So I'm kind of eye deep in work and prepping for this week. And the early date of the drafts is good and bad. I'll be done by January 11th,
sure,
when it's all nipped in the bud. But at the same time, it has left me not as much time to prepare on the other side of actually taking a few days off between Christmas and New Year. So, takes some good and bad, but it is kind of exciting. And I think FC Cincinnati will make things a little even more exciting too with, obviously having the number 1 pick, but I'm expecting, this is based off of nothing but pure speculation, reading some few articles, them to do a little bit more on draft day, especially in the first round. So that'll be interesting, fun to see.
Well, before we dig into FC Cincinnati, I want to know a little bit more, and I want our viewers and our listeners to know a little bit more about Top Drawer Soccer. Fill folks in on what you do there and what kind of service you provide to fans of soccer across the country.
Yeah, so we cover basically elite non-professional soccer is the way I spin it to people that do or do not know about soccer. So that's, elite levels of club in the United States and a little bit in Canada. Youth national teams, we have a main focus on U.S. youth, men's and women's. And then, of course, we also cover in depth the college season, or as in depth as two people can, the Division I men's and women's college season primarily. So that's a whole lot of things, a whole lot of players, but we try to do our best to keep track of and keep people educated on, the up and comers for the U.S. men and U.S. women's national team, but also the up and coming professionals as well. So, covering kids that move to Europe, or that bypass college, or all kinds of things that kind of fill in that category. But obviously, primarily focused on American soccer, of course. But there are the odd international players that come to play college soccer, which is a little bit of a growing trend, even though it's not as visible in this year's Generation Adidas class in particular.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed with the Generation Adidas class, like this year, it's all Americans and 2 Canadians versus last year is a huge different international crop. So, as an American soccer fan, I guess it's, I look at that as a positive that those assets or those, I guess, luxuries are being afforded to the American player. But I guess to each his own. So going into this this draft, or really even looking at the history, we've seen, several big pieces come out with that first pick. You've seen, Jack Harrison, Kyle Larin, Andre Blake, all huge success stories, moving abroad, getting big transfers out of the league, succeeding at their original clubs. Does this draft class have any of those elite type of prospects in your opinion?
I would say that if you're looking at the number 1 overall pick, 3 of the players from the GA class come to mind. Now, obviously, you got to frame it from a mindset of it's never a sure thing. Making the jump from college to MLS is less an idea. So I think Tejon Buchanan, the Syracuse forward, Syed Haji, the VCU forward, and then maybe a little bit down, JJ Williams, the forward from Kentucky, are all high potential, high upside guys, but by no means a sure thing. So I think they have the tools to kind of make that big impact and potentially become core players. But I think it's important to keep in mind and temper expectations because, the MLS draft and, for maybe fans in Cincinnati that aren't familiar with it, especially now, it's a lot less of a team building piece, right? I think, I was doing my research and looking at Cincinnati's roster and reading something that said it trends towards, upper 20s, lower 30s players. So the draft is a real chance for them to add, 1 or 2 younger pieces to the roster and guys that, when you're talking Generation Adidas class, because of that rule, they won't count against the salary cap, and that provides a little bit of flexibility, chance to develop a player and bring them along to a point where they hopefully become a Kyle Larin type impact player, maybe transfer abroad in the next 4 or 5 years. But I think you don't want to get too carried away. You want to find a guy that can contribute to your roster, whether it's later this season, maybe it's a surprise and earlier in the season, but a guy that'll contribute at some point during his contract at the team.
Yeah, so you did make mention there that pretty much all the first overall picks have been Generation Adidas players, which is of course a program that helps provide or the league provides some of the salary versus the teams counting versus the cap. The whole landscape of college soccer is shifting a little bit, and even on your big board, you have 2 of your top 5 are non-GA players. Is it possible, or do you think any of those college seniors might be drafted overall first?
I would be, honestly, that would be the biggest surprise of the whole thing. I think, maybe it wouldn't be too crazy for Callum Montgomery. I don't know if Cincinnati is in need of a center back, but he seems to be the best senior at that spot. But at the same time, from what I understand and know of their situation, you have a good chunk of allocation money. You have teams that I'm sure will be willing to dip out of even the top 5 for probably not that big of a number. And again, I'm not basing this off of teams talking or, this is me sitting in my kitchen with the lights off and just kind of guessing. But I think that you have that sort of factors. You could probably see if FC Cincinnati feels they have like 2 guys they like and, maybe the top 10, they can take a first pick and then they can grab that senior later on instead of spending the first pick on the senior. I think the roster flexibility of the GA piece makes it kind of a no-brainer. You need to do it this way, whereas for these senior guys, none of them, at least right now, the only one is the Denver forward Andre Shinyashiki is the only one who has a senior contract already, and his is contingent on being drafted either, I think maybe in the first or second round, and comes with a salary number already attached to it that will count against the cap. I think MLS roster rules are very, very difficult, as I'm sure you've learned.
Yes.
But you look at that and you think, okay, well, if you have that roster flexibility that the GA program provides, there's not a huge difference between, taking one of these younger players and bringing in a senior. Like, there's no seniors that you look at like, well, he's a slam dunk to play 30 games. I would not bet any money on any of these guys just because the nature of the games are so different, right? You're looking at a 3 to 4 month season versus however long the MLS season is now. I haven't checked. What is it, March to October, 7 months? So, you're making the jump against, a huge step up in quality. So all those factors in, I think it would be quite the development for a senior to go. I don't think I've ever covered a draft, and I've done this since 2009, which is, isn't as long as some others, but I don't think I've ever covered a draft that a GA player has been picked or hasn't been picked first overall. So it would be a huge surprise. So I think if you're talking FC Cincinnati, you're talking the number one pick, you can narrow it down to 7. I could say, you could even say 6 candidates, because I don't think they're going to pick Dane Sinclair. As good as he might be, it would kind of surprise me to see him go first overall.
I'll tell you what, Cincinnati in this whole roster build has thrown conventional wisdom right out the window. So you never know how this is going to go.
So what you're saying is we should all expect either Dane Sinclair to be picked or maybe a senior or something.
Yeah, man, you never know with these guys.
That's fair. Good point.
All right. So, hey, Travis. So to piggyback off of the first round picks and all of that, do you see any sleeper players that could be drafted in later rounds at all?
Yeah, I mean, it's always going to be a little bit of guesswork. So one of the players I have rated highly now is Brad Dunwell, a midfielder from Wake Forest. Very, very good number 6. But well, how I'm sure you guys have seen the flurry of social media activity surrounding the MLSsoccer.com released some of the physical testing, and I got my hands on the full results, and he's one of my favorite players in the college game, and he's a guy that has settled down a little bit near the bottom, unfortunately. But when you look at that second round pick at the number 25 spot, I think there's a number of different directions that you could go in. Maybe Tajon Buchanan's a guy out of Syracuse, and he's a teammate. Kamal Miller, a pretty good center back. I can spout off a number of names. It kind of depends on what Cincinnati needs at that point, what's kind of available. In terms of sleepers, it's always so hard to gauge because it comes down to both sides of the puzzle with a player. How ready are they for preseason? How do they adjust? Is it quick enough? And then the team has to give them the chances. We talk a lot, at least I bleed a lot. I bleed a lot about young players in MLS not getting opportunities, and you can kind of throw even college seniors and college juniors in that conversation where maybe they don't get a chance. A couple other names. Joey Piatzik's a guy out of West Virginia who's been compared to Ken Krolicki. I think was picked he was picked in the 3rd or 4th round by the Montreal Impact out of Michigan State. Ended up getting a lot of minutes. Someone like DeJuan Jones out of Michigan State, who soccer-wise can be hit or miss, but his physical tests get him to a point where he might be in the conversation. So, there are a number of guys out there that I think could, in the right spot, find themselves surprising. But at the end of the day, you look at the numbers of the draft and the guys that come through it. I think it was 84 players were picked last year, and you saw 22 of them get minutes in MLS. So Cincinnati, I think, will be a little bit different in bucking those odds. And I'm not sure what they've been doing in terms of doing homework and due diligence, but there's a chance for them to nab and then provide opportunities for guys and for players this season, I feel like.
We're hanging out with Travis Clark, Director of Content over at TopDrawerSoccer.com. You can follow him on Twitter at Travis M. Clark. And Travis, as I'm sure you're aware, I don't know how much you followed of FC Cincinnati's 2-year USL history, but it seems like goalkeeper is a position of interest, especially after our first year with Mitch Hildebrand. He became a fan favorite. So I guess the question we've got to ask, what's the likelihood that FC Cincinnati is going to draft somebody that could play between the sticks for him?
Yeah, I mean, you could make the argument that the position is one that's I don't want to say easy to fill via the college ranks, but it's pretty common for guys to come in, pick third or fourth round and end up playing. Well, not necessarily end up playing, but end up signing a contract, maybe sticking around as a second or third string goalkeeper. But the thing you can keep in mind too there is, if you're talking using your 4 picks, do they still have 4 picks? I'm not sure if they traded any of the other ones away, but
5 now.
A lot of times there are so many. Okay, the 5 picks, right? So, let's say you want to place an emphasis on field players. You're still going to have, if it's the goal is to pick maybe a third goalkeeper that you see with upside, you could probably just bring in some keepers in camp, and there are enough guys looking for jobs out there that if you really rated a goalkeeper, maybe you make a splash and you pick Dane St. Clair number 1 overall. But I feel like you could roll the dice a little bit with one of these field players and see if 2 or 3 of them stick, and then you're still going to be able to find a goalkeeper, even if you don't draft one. So they have, I think, 7 or 8 goalkeepers down at the combine, just as an example. Like, maybe they really like the goalkeeper from Akron, who's a senior, Ben Lunt. He's a 6'6" German. He would require an international spot, which definitely works against him. But that's just an example of a guy that could have scouted heavily, given the geographical proximity. And then if he goes undrafted, which is pretty likely because he's an international, you bring him into camp and you see what he can do, and maybe he'll chase his dream for you a little bit. So you can't rule anything out. I think that's why Americans love drafts. But at the same time, there are certainly ways to work around it, because it's always perplexing to me. You see, I think last year in the first round, there were 3 goalkeepers picked in a row. And I believe none of them played any minutes in 2018. But at the same time, you see teams you think need a goalkeeper, they end up just bringing guys in who will come in preseason and win a contract that way without being drafted. So both avenues seem just as likely. And like I said, maybe FCC throws things out the window and goes for that splashy goalkeeper at the first pick.
So Top Drawer, as you mentioned earlier, also covers more than just the college game. They cover academies, development, stuff like that. Of course, many MLS clubs are now focusing on their homegrown players, their development system, through their academies versus the draft. Of course, that's a huge thing. Of course, you see Toronto, Dallas, all these clubs developing players, and of course, New York Red Bulls probably is the best. There's a lot of emphasis in Cincinnati. One of the first things they did is get their training center off the ground to hopefully get the academy system rolling this upcoming season. What's a realistic expectation? Somebody who's around the youth game, where FC Cincinnati will be able to start developing players and transitioning them through to the senior team, like Atlanta, took them a year or two. Is that something that's realistic or something that's way out there?
I think it's a little bit further out there. So I actually was thinking about this, and I'm not 100% sure of what Cincinnati's plans were, but here's what Atlanta did, which is a little bit, I don't want to say they didn't cheat, but what they did is there was an existing development academy called Atlanta United. They're Atlanta United, of course. I think it was Georgia United or something like that. And it was competing in the development academy. And what they did is they basically went in, and as you'd imagine, Atlanta will do, is they threw money around. They hired the staff. They basically rebranded it. So, your Andrew Carlton, your Chris Goslin, like 2 of those first homegrown signings were kids that had played in the Georgia United Academy. So that was already like this merger between 5 clubs in the Atlanta area. And they were already ahead of the game, and then they doubled down with the infrastructure. They put the training center together, and they just, their academy director is the guy that was running that show. So I think that you should, as an FC Cincinnati fan base, certainly temper expectations. And I'm not saying you shouldn't look towards something getting a foundation getting laid, but that's a whole kind of different animal what they did in Atlanta. And I think you could be several years off, because a lot of what new academy teams have done over the past, like, let's say 4 or 5 years. Let's take New York City FC as an example. When they launched their academy, what they did is they started at I believe it's either the U13 or U14 age group. So I believe Minnesota is doing the same thing, and they just did that over the past year and a half. So these things don't happen overnight, and it's more of a long-term build. I think one element of the draft that could be interesting is J.J. Williams being the striker from University of Kentucky, which I know he's from Alabama, but you could certainly see, a part of the lure maybe to pick him would be he's, I don't want to call him local because he's not local, but there's a little bit more of someone a little bit closer to Cincinnati coming in to play for the team in their first year. Like that little spin would give the team a little more buzz. Not sure if they're going to go that route, but you could certainly see if you're a marketing person at FC Cincinnati, it's not a bad route to take. So I think you have to give it a few years to let a foundation take place, unless they're coming in and bringing in the academy kind of like Atlanta did. It's going to be a long process. Like, even take New York City went about it the way they did, and they're only, they signed a couple kids, but they're like 15 and 16-year-olds. They're signing to the team, and they're not really seeing minutes. So I think it's always going to be a process when talking about bringing in development teams and ensuring there are ways for academies to take root and to find success.
Yeah, and I think, of course, we're a little bit behind the 8 ball without a USL affiliate in place right now. But all right, man, one more question here for you. You've been doing this for years. You've seen these events come and go. You're the guy in the room now. What's your play on Friday?
So if I'm picking, I like to get FECU, Zahid Haji. I have him going in the mock drafts. I might change it up just for something different for our final one, but he's a player. He's like a little bit more of a attack-minded Darlington Nagbe. Maybe not quite at Darlington's level in terms of his ability on the ball, but he can make stuff happen. And I think in the right environment, with the right sort of approach, he's one of the 2 or 3 guys in this draft that I could see as potentially being a national team player one day. So he would be a little bit more of a high risk, maybe slightly high risk. I don't even know, because there's all a little bit of a risk involved in this jump. But he's a guy I think that could bring something. I think honestly, Haji, Buchanan, Williams seem like you're rolling the dice a little bit, but you're bringing attacking pieces with upside that could end up, surprising sooner rather than later. I think it's a good way to approach it. Now, I'm sure FC Cincinnati will pick none of those guys.
That's usually how it works. Well, Travis, we know you're a busy man. We appreciate you spending some time with us. For folks who are listening, go check out the tremendous work he does over at topdrawersoccer.com. They also have a great podcast as well. Travis, thanks so much for being with us, and good luck the rest of the week, and get some rest when you can, all right?
No problem. Thanks a lot. Everyone have a good day.
Thank you, you too. That's Travis Clark joining us here on the King's Hammer Hotline. We're glad to have him with us here on the show. Again, he does a tremendous job with everything that he does over at topdrawersoccer.com. So again, I really, really recommend you going to check that out. All right, so it's the first week of the month. So this is our time to thank each and every one of our supporters. We cannot thank you enough for all that you do for us. So first and foremost, thank you so much to King's Hammer and Tim Bronsel, Matt Adamchick, Mama Subes, Brian Malone, Jamie Smed, Mike Hudson, Jonas Tom, Jack Emery, Mike Bowman, Kathleen Francis, Jesse King, Teresa Everidge, Matt Imholt, Sagan Sagai, and Matt Long. Of course, we have to also thank John Davidson, Patrick Lonnie, Dave Tangler, Alex Yersky, Claire Hughes, Carl Fight, Scott Griffith, Josh Leese, Kevin Johnston, Derek Smed, Greg Harrell, Jack Doyle, Doug Ross, James Denbo, the Cincy superfan Tom Grabo, Tim and Tina Harris, Chris Howard, Sarah Spriggs, Paul Hetger, Michael Winland, Mattis Brumbach, Courtney Rice, Scott Party, Joe Collier, Richard Rolson, Christina Sharma, Nate Hale, and then last but not least, Brandon Jones, Adam Alexander, Chima John, Mike Berryman, Andy Rosen, Jeff Egan, Joseph Wells, Becky and Matt Ryan, Stephen Buckeridge, Gary Randolph, AJ Stork, Alec Mackey, Jamie Lay, Angela Cardwell, Anthony Zawoski, Scott Kaplan, Colin Rink, Jason DeBrewer, Robert Finley, Arthur Oliva, Scott Wilson, Stephen Haldeman, Wesley Jackson, our episode captain for this week, Dave Dorsey, and last but certainly not least, Corey Finneran. If you're interested in learning how you can support the show, head on over to our website, CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com/support. That is where you can learn more about how you can contribute and help CST any way you possibly can. So again, CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com/support is where you need to go. All right, so we just wrapped up with Travis Clark, Bry. Who do you want to see FC Cincinnati draft coming up on Friday?
Woo! Oh man, there's a lot going on in this draft. Even though all the experts seem to say, oh, it doesn't mean as much. Well, at the top end, it's kind of what Travis said. I think there's probably about 4 or 5 players that are a realistic chance for this first spot. And there's actually a name that Travis didn't say, or if he did, is very briefly. There's another player, number 10 type of player, attacking player, the diminutive Frankie Amaya. I believe he's the youngest guy in the draft at 19 years old, freshman out of UCLA. U20 stalwart, played in the big U20 CONCACAF win over Mexico. Guy stands at 5'4", has done real well in the U.S. Youth National Team setup. But this guy might be a little bit of a project. Of course, size as well is something you got to consider. I think he's an option. Syed Haji out of VCU. Can be a 10, can be a winger, very versatile, very athletic. Again, one of the younger guys, I think only 20 years old. I think those two guys are pretty solid options. He said Tajon Buchanan, who's a 6-foot forward, a Canadian forward out of Syracuse. The nice thing about him is that Canadians who have been developed at Canadian academies actually now count as domestic players, especially in the Generation Adidas program. He will not count as a foreign player. Now, I don't know if that rule changes after they graduate out of the Generation Adidas program, which basically means if a player signed a Generation Adidas contract, underclassmen, higher paid traditionally than a traditional senior, after they play so many minutes, so many games, so many years, they graduate out of that program, and then their roster basically goes from being quote unquote free towards the roster budget to a larger cap hit versus the roster budget. So these are all different things that the technical staff at FC Cincinnati are going to have to think about. Also, I'm a big fan of actually drafting a goalkeeper if we can. In that Dane St. Clair, I think he had 500 minutes to close the end of the year, including the College Cup, no goals allowed. So I think those are 4 players. J.J. Williams, of course, in there is probably a 5th player that we might see that first pick. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see where FC Cincinnati goes. If it was up to me, I think probably Haji or Amaya, but I like the fact that both of them are kind of projects. They're both high quality players, but they're not players that we need to play right now. And I want to keep their salary off the books as long as possible. So I'm okay with us taking Frankie Amaya, Haji, and shipping them out to USL affiliate, Richmond or Pittsburgh or somewhere else, and let them learn a little bit of professional setup maybe. So I think that's probably where I would go with my first 2 picks, or potentially the goalkeeper.
Trisha, is there anybody that you were, I don't know how much you've had a chance to read up on these draft prospects, but is there a position of need that you really want to see FC Cincinnati attack in this first pick of the Super Draft?
Well, to piggyback off of Brian, probably Siad Haji. I know that I've mostly observed a lot of the conversation in our Slack channel about him, but I feel like he could fit the role that we need. I feel like we have a plethora of defensive players currently, So it would be nice to get someone in there where, again, even if we did loan him out, he could get experience elsewhere and potentially fill a gap that we might see later on in the season.
And piggyback off you, he might be the one player that plays right away, or at least gets some game time, maybe not a starting role in a reserve role, very pacey player, because he can play the wing as well. And we have very little width on this team as currently built. So I think that makes sense now. Bobby Warshaw said the exact opposite I think with his interview with FC Cincinnati this week down in Orlando. So this thing can go either way. If I'm Luke Sassano, I'm pretty excited with what I have to offer. Again, these guys aren't going to be immediate, but as we said on the show, we've written, I think this 2 years that we have right now, these first 2 years of FC Cincinnati are about setting up years 3 through 10. And I think this pick, Haji, Amaya, to even extend, I think probably a little bit more St. Clair, the goalkeeper, those guys are long-term plays. And I kind of like the fact that we might be able to set up our future FC Cincinnati, on Friday in Chicago. So I'm getting pretty excited about this when certain people aren't as enthused out there. But yeah, I think it's going to be a good pick if we can go with one of those three, really one of the 5 if you include Buchanan or Williams.
Yeah, I know our own Rob Pierce is going to be making the trip to Chicago to cover the Super Draft for us. So make sure you check back to CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com for the latest. I'm one of those guys, Bri. I'm not, I'm not a big fan of these drafts, at least, and mainly because you look at the history of these drafts and that the top pick doesn't necessarily play a lot, or at least right away. And so it's tough for me to get all geeked up about it. You saw Richie Ryan tweeting about, some of the stuff going on at the Combine this week. So I don't know. It's great, but I guess to me, I'm more excited about the potential academy going forward for FC Cincinnati.
Sure. And I think this is a good topic to kind of talk about, that sometimes, especially if we're looking at, and I mentioned it during the interviews, if we have an academy, or really in the short term, we have an affiliate, this is a good time for us to just get players into the system, get them into a camp. Let's transition them, and let's just hold on to them as assets, loan them out if we need to, picks, our 2nd through 5th picks, because currently we have 5. Let's get some of these guys in, get them out, at least kind of get that culture going to kind of have a little bit more players under our wing to see how they develop. And then, the short-term play is what we have right now is with these USL players we brought up. So getting this culture, maintaining this culture, and seeing how many of these guys can develop through. When I look at this draft kind of going into the future, or even now with some of these other teams, this draft is almost more important for the USL teams or the teams that have MLS 2.
Sure.
So I think this is going to be something that we kind of looked for in the future, is if we can find a sleeper player. I mean, like Leo Fernandez, for example. I think he had been through the Philadelphia Union system. He was like a 4th round supplemental pick. So there's players out there down on these combine sheets, on these ratings, that if we've done our homework, if Hunter Freeman's done his homework, I guess he's been the one scouting these guys, there's definitely going to be an opportunity where we should still pay attention to some of these lower tier picks and how they might be able to develop into future FC Cincinnati players.
Well, we're interested to see who you think FC Cincinnati should be drafting coming up on Friday, particularly at that number 1 spot. If you don't know a particular player, we want to know what position you want to see them go after. So hit us up, feedback@CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com. A lot has happened since we last did a show here at Cincinnati Soccer Talk, at least a live show. We hope everybody enjoyed the interview with Andrew Wiedemann a couple weeks ago. That was fun to record. But let's talk a little bit about some of the players that have come into FC Cincinnati since that last show that we did. So Trisha, out of that list of names you've got there in front of you, which player really stands out to you?
Professionally?
Well, however you want to look at it.
I don't know. I'm really excited for Leonardo Bertone. I think that's going to be an interesting player to see on the pitch.
You took the easy one.
I did not. What do you mean? Like pronunciation-wise?
That, and the fact that he just played a game versus Juventus. That's pretty cool.
I could easily pronounce these names. I am very good with pronunciation. Thank you, Brian.
What's the Frenchman's name?
Mathieu Deplania.
Yes, you did. You did
4
so good.
years of French. Thank you.
So good. Now say what club he came from, because I can't say that word. Trois. I can't say it.
Something like that. I took it in high school. It's been some time, but I have been practicing.
Leo Bertone, what's your favorite part about him besides he's a good-looking man?
That actually was my number one thing. I'm allowed to say that. Actually, if we're being honest, the most attractive one we've signed is our Frenchman. He has that Chris Evans smile.
Oh, I love it.
So
the Chris Evans smile. See, I'm so out of the loop and so old and gray haired, and I don't even know what's going on here. What is the Chris Evans smile?
You know how Chris Evans has that little bit of like,
his smile Captain America
kilter.
Oh, see, what you have to realize is I don't watch those comic book movies. Sorry, so I don't even know who Chris Evans is.
Those comic book movies.
Yes.
So he's in a comic book movie.
He just said. Brian just said it.
Oh, how do you not know who Chris Evans is?
I live in a hole where I do nothing but podcasts and race.
How do you not
He
watch
plays
Marvel movies?
racing games 24/7, Trisha.
Maybe you should pop in some Marvel DVDs in your free time.
You'll be
Watch
happier.
The Winter Soldier.
You'll be happier. No, I agree with you. I'm jacked up about Bertone. He's a good D mid box to box guy that has scored 18 goals, basically a goal every 10 games. Has played 31 Champions League matches. No, I think that's a great pick, and that's the guy who I think I'm most excited about as well, Trisha. So you got a good eye there. Of course, we had Deplania. Ah, God, I'm going to say it. Remember 100 ways to say Abu Dhabi? 100 ways to say Deplania.
It's Al Badawi.
I know, it's just my shtick, So the thing, of course, we talked about Alves Powell, we talked about Deplan, whatever, last time. But so you're saying you're excited about Bertone, and I'm excited about Mathieu, but I'm nervous about him because this guy, he's 27, so he's still relatively young. He's got some experience going out there, but traditionally as a right back, from everything we've hearing, he's transitioning to a center back here in Cincinnati. So that's tough. He doesn't speak the language from what I'm hearing. Hopefully he's learning very well. So that kind of scares me.
The good thing is Alan and Johan both speak French. So
yeah, and Pamudaka, I think might as well too. But I doubt Kendall Waston speaks French, so that scares me a little bit. And then just moving to a new country. So those are three things. And Brad Weigel's going to yell at me for taking his shtick here, but those three things kind of stack the deck against him. So I'm not sure what to expect out of him in year one. This might be another player that he's only 27, so we might have 6 years or more with this guy if he can succeed here in Cincinnati. So I think we need to be a little bit patient with him. He could be a little bit of a project, but I think he's been around the block. He's done pretty well according to what we hear out of France. So I think that's actually, I think, the kind of the upside play I'm excited to see. Of course, Alves Powell, speedster, proven pro, comes from a winning program at Portland. I don't think we have to worry about anything with him on that right side of the defense. So very excited about this whole defensive unit so far. Yeah, I mean, I think those three signings, Bertone, Powell, Deplane, I'm going to say 100 ways to say it.
There's one correct way to say it, and I'll write it out phonetically for you.
Doesn't matter if it can't.
You can write it on your hand. You'll never forget.
I'm still going to mess it up. So it's my stick. So, no, I think these three sayings are pretty solid. And we keep hearing more. We keep hearing more come down the pipe. So, Nick, what are you hearing, buddy?
Yeah, there's a rumor that we've got a playmaker, a Chilean playmaker who's he's a little bit older, 32 years of age. Matias Fernandez from Necaxa, and if I'm butchering that team name,
is it Nahaka?
I don't know. We Googled it the last time we were on the show. I don't know. Look, He's a playmaker. The only thing that concerns me is his age. He's won Copa Mekis. Sam Stachel reporting that Alan Koch confirms Matias Fernandez on an option for FC Cincinnati. We're still looking at lots and lots of different options, but it's certainly not done by any means, is what Alan Koch has said about this signing. 32 years old, Bry. Still, it's a playmaker, a number 10 that, right now this team just doesn't have.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I would have liked to I would have liked to have had him 5 years ago.
Oh yeah.
If I was developing an MLS team, but a guy who and we can talk about this with Ozzie Alonso too. I don't want to jump ahead too far. We've talked about potentially the signing of Osvaldo Ozzie Alonso, the D mid from Seattle. Is that same thing that worries me with Fernandez is Alonso. Okay, we might get 25 games out of these guys, but we play how many? 32, right. 34 games a year, and that just scares the crud out of me is what do you do in those games without these two players? So I do like we're looking at options. I think he's still a high-quality option. I'm not sure how we're going to play yet, and that's what scares me so much about this team is what type of tactic is Coach Koch going to bring in? And when you got Ozzie Alonso with 4 other high-quality D mids on this team, I'm just looking for us to bring in a darn winger or a darn attacking piece. So I guess Fernandez is what I'm more looking for. I'd rather spend our money on somebody to get the ball to Fernando Adi and Darren Maddox. So I guess I'd be more in favor of that. But I'm just really trying to see, what is this? How is the club really constructing its roster and how is our shape going to look? So I've been very confused so far, and I think that's probably been the thing that's frustrated me the most this offseason. I just don't see the plan, even though there is a plan. I just don't see it right now. But of course, it's still super early. Coach Koch has come out in the papers with Pat Brennan and said, hey, I'm still not satisfied with our attacking core yet. So I assume we'll see things in the next 2 weeks because that's when camp starts. So hopefully the next 11 days, I think.
It's going to be here before you know it. I guess that's one of the things that really intrigued me and excited about Bertone, is I think he might have that potential to be a 10, but it's not his natural position.
Yeah.
So if you're going to try and shoehorn him into a position based on his ability that he's never played, then that becomes an issue.
Well, this is the only thing that kind of got me is that I thought we might go into like a 4-2-3-1 double pivot with the D-mids because we got so many box-to-box midfielders. We got, if Bertone can be like the passing guy and maybe Alashe or it could be the high energy guy. Yo could be the defensive guy. If we need to go into those different tactics, you could switch out those two next to Bertone. Depending on how you want to play, but you still need the 10. You still need your wingers, and I'm just not seeing where we're coming in yet, especially with our best left winger unsigned to date in Roland Lamar. He's, I think, left winger, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Hashtag where's Roland?
Where's Roland?
Yeah. So we don't know what's going on with that. There was a quote today from Jeff Birding, basically that they're trying to work something out. It doesn't seem, based on the quote from Jeff, that they're close. We could be reading way into that more than we need to. But the fact is, the expansion draft was almost a month ago, and this guy is still not signed. And you used a pretty important pick in the expansion draft to get him. So we'll see. Maybe it all works out in the end, and he ends up showing up. Obviously, I think we know the right wing position might be filled in the summer with that rumored Fabian Johnson, if that can get done. And that's a big-time rumor, and a lot that will go into that signing if it does happen.
Yeah, and of course, we're forgetting Emmanuel Ledesma, USL Player of the Year, quality player. I think he likes to dip inside a little bit more than be a traditional winger. So
could he be a 10, Bri?
Maybe. I personally like him as like a second striker.
Yep.
Or like just maybe off a little bit. So we'll see how that goes. I mean, it's definitely possible. If he would be that second striker, you definitely would need your two D-mids to be home a little bit more and keep a little bit more defensive shape and only have one of them go forward at a time. So we'll see. I think anything's possible. As you said, I'm just waiting for one or two more positions to kind of tip the domino to see how this club's going to go moving forward. Is it going to go 4-2-3-1? Is it going to be 3-5-2, 5-3-2, whatever we've seen? I just want to see how we start line up. I'm getting a little impatient, Subs.
Yep, I hear you, man.
I'm pretty impatient too. I feel like the lineup we have now is very good defensively, which is great. But at the same time, while defense doesn't exactly win you games, you kind of want someone to help you get points. It's
Great
kind of
point.
The point of the whole game is, yeah, you don't want the other team to score, but at the same time, you also want to score. So until we really fill that role, it makes me nervous, especially as we were talking about earlier, looking at the schedule, playing Seattle and Atlanta and Portland right out of the gate. There's a lot of negativity going around the Twitter sphere about, man, we're going to suck this year. And it's possible. And there was a part of me that was like, man, why can't people just be positive? But there's a difference between being negative and being realistic about what we have and what we're going into right now. So we'll just have to wait and see who else is signed, whether we get some more attacking power, what this process is that we will be trusting this year, etc.
Love it. No, good point in the defense, though. I do think that's a good thing, at least knock on wood, is that a lot of us feel fairly comfortable with that base. That's what Chris Marshall just put on Facebook. So
yeah, I think the spine's in pretty good shape. Mm-hmm. 2 solid center backs. You've got a what we think will be a pretty good goalkeeper. Obviously, we know the defensive mids, I think, are a strong point for this team right now with what they've got and what they brought in, and we know what we've got in Adi up top. The question is, can he get service?
I would say, do we know what we have up top?
We'd like to think we know what we have up top.
We have an idea.
I've been Mr. Positive with Adi, so we'll see. I do feel good with it.
I think, this is going to be a different year for Adi. I'd like to think that the talent around him has improved from last year. So
God, you hope so.
I know. That's what I'm saying. I would hope so.
I think it's going to be a matter of the talent and the connection that he has, because I feel like last year when he came in, he didn't really focus on getting that, connection with the other players on the pitch that you really sometimes depend on to move the ball, because he knew he wasn't going to be playing with a lot of the guys. He was like, hey, I'm coming into a USL squad. We're going to MLS next year. How many of these guys am I going to be playing with A, the amount of games left in the season, and B, the amount of minutes he's going to play? So maybe, going into preseason and having all this training with these people knowing I'm going to be playing with you all season, he might, I hate phrasing it like this, but he might care a little bit more.
Yeah, we'll see.
I don't know.
Yeah. And Milford Magic on Periscope watching us live right now, disagreeing about Adi, does not think he is a reliable goal scorer. So we'll see. He's going to have a point to prove here in 2019. We did say some goodbyes to some fellow FC Cincinnati players since we last did a show. It was actually just announced recently, Sem de Wit heading out east to Hartford Athletic, where he will be continuing his playing career. So Sem, best of luck there in the USL Championship, I believe, Bri. And then Evan Newton, we don't know what's going on or where he's going, but we know, unfortunately, it will not be here in Cincinnati. So Evan, we appreciate all that you did for FC Cincinnati this year. You're a fan favorite, and you will be missed. There were some other odds and ends that we should probably wrap up here. Abu Dhabi, we know Nas is currently playing with Palestine in the 2019 Asian Cup. We thought he was going to get some minutes, and then it didn't work out. Red card kind of ended that for him. And then we got this.
Red card to a teammate.
Right.
Who's coming in to replace, yes.
Right.
They want to go defensive.
Yeah. So, and then the other note, we found out today that FC Cincinnati hiring their first ever chief operating officer in Dennis Carroll. He joins the club from Philadelphia Union, where he spent the last 10 years there as their VP, senior VP, and CFO. So, FC Cincinnati making some big time pushes here in the front office here as we head into the first season for Major League Soccer. Coming up here in just a few moments, we will have extra time, so make sure you stick around for that here in just a few minutes. But as always, we do wrap up our show with our final thoughts. So I'll start first and foremost with Trisha Hauser. Trisha, thank you so much for being with me this week and doing the show. Final thoughts as we get out of here?
Final thoughts, lots of them will be succinct. I'm really looking forward to the Hell is Real Derby. Looking at the schedule, that is the number one thing I am most excited for. I cannot wait.
Well said. And glad to have you back, and looking
you.
forward to catching up with you more this season.
I enjoy being here.
All right. Final thoughts from you, Brian Weigel. It's been a while, but we're glad to have you back. We got to work on getting you some FCC swag behind you there, but we know it's a work in progress there at the new home.
Tell my wife.
No, I'm going to stay away.
I'll text her. We'll text her. I'll be like, hello, ma'am. Let's be friends. Hang up some scarves.
She's awesome. Well, I think Trisha, I was going to say, I'm glad Columbus is still around. Also, kind of cool. This is off topic a little bit, but pretty cool that Christian Pulisic is now over in a massive club in Chelsea. I mean, he was in a massive club in Dortmund too, but pretty excited to see how he's going to move forward with in England. I think if he succeeds, I think it's only good things for American players, globalizing the game, getting our better players out and about. I love keeping great players in Major League Soccer, but I think we need to start developing that high end player. And I think if he can really just kind of knock down that door, I think it'll be great things for everybody, and it'll really show to Major League Soccer clubs that they need to start developing their own talent to sell in the future. And of course, that's a whole new animal, but hopefully this is something that can be good for U.S. soccer and kind of move that needle and really get this the growth of this game going.
Yeah. Good stuff, Bri. As always, appreciate you being with me.
See you in a month.
You filled your quota.
Maybe make it 2 months with his record.
We'll try.
Oh, my final thoughts. Again, I hope everybody had a wonderful holiday and got a chance to spend some quality time with friends and family. I was very fortunate that my sister and brother-in-law and my nieces were able to come in from Colorado and spend a few days with me. Mama Subs and Papa Subs ended up coming up and spending a few days with the Suberlin clan here in Northwest Ohio. And I just want to give a shout out and thank you to my mom and dad for giving me the brand new camera. So for those of you who are looking at me and watching me in a more crystal clear picture, I do apologize. You can blame Mama Subs and Papa Subs for that. But no, Mom, I just want to say thank you for hooking us up here with a new camera to make us look better here in the CST studio. Don't forget, you can rate and review the show on iTunes. CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com/iTunes is how you can get to the show. And also, we'd love to hear your feedback. Since we last did the show, we did redesign the website. It's a completely new redesign. So if you haven't had a chance, go check it out, CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com. We've got a lot of great articles out on the website. We had one today showing the expansion side from Philadelphia Union. A few days ago, Seattle Sounders when they joined the league. So go check it out, CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com. My thanks to Travis Clark from TopDrawerSoccer.com for joining us this week. And, of course, my thanks to Brian and Trisha as well. Coming up next, it's Extra Time. I'm Subs, reminding you to watch your tackles, and we will see you all next week. Hey, we're back. It's time for Extra Time. This is a chance for those of you who we asked you on Twitter for questions for our Extra Time segment, hashtag CST Extra Time. So let's get right to it, shall we? This question coming from Robert Finley. Your thoughts on getting outbid on Alonso. Now, Bri, I know you're a huge, massive fan of Ozzy Alonso.
I am, actually.
Are you? Well, you just were a fan of his. You just didn't want to maybe see him in the orange and blue.
No. I mean, I think he's a good player. I think he's had a place in this game in Major League Soccer. I'm worried about what he can contribute on a full season basis now. I think he's done like 25 games a year, 26 games last year. So that's great. Can he continue that? Is he willing to put in the work necessary that he's going to need for an expansion club, or is he looking to go to somewhere where he can get a title? He's definitely not looking for a title if he's going to Minnesota. So right. I don't know what the deal is there, but yeah, we'll see. I just think we got 4 guys that can play that role already. Why throw why throw money his way,
Yeah.
especially because he's still going to be expensive.
Yeah, he is, and he's one of those guys that really, if you think about it, the last few years, missed a lot of time. And if you're going to spend that kind of money, you're going to want somebody that's going to be on the field a lot more often than Alonso is. And even if you do bring him in, is he better than what you have on the roster already? That's the real question.
I mean,
So-
Bertone is a TAM player, so he's expensive.
Yeah.
He's over a max budget contract, so or at least his transfer fee and everything else. So that's going to be a guy that's going to have to play. And I mean, between Ulloa and Alashe and who else am I forgetting? I mean, I don't see the need for him to come in and push him out.
Right.
Or push one of those guys out.
All right. Next extra time question comes from Mitch Autry. I'm sorry, Mitch. I butchered that. How many goals do you think FC Cincinnati will score in the first 10 games? Over under 16? Will they score more or less than 16 goals in the first 10 games? Trisha, what do you think?
They will score less.
So you're going the under.
Yes.
All right. Any particular reason why you believe that?
As of now, with our current squad, I don't know if we have the necessary ability to put more points on the board. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm going to be a little realistic here.
Okay,
and
so you're
say
going less than 16.
Less than 16.
All right. Bri?
Doing math real quick. Hold on. 8.
That's about
no.
1.5 per match.
I would say I think we'll be about 14 goals. So no.
Yeah, I'm going to take the under as well. And look, that depends on what else they bring in. We've been shocked before. Nobody saw the Bertone signing coming in, and it was a big eye opener when that happened. So, Mitch is responding on Facebook. Trisha, ouch! Hope you're wrong on that.
Me too. I want to be wrong. I am okay
Plania?
with being wrong. Yes, what about him?
Okay, lasagna de Plania.
See, you can find word associations.
De Plania?
No, de Plania.
We're back on this.
Pizza?
Yes. No, not pizza. He's not Italian.
Anyway, I'm taking the under as well. I hope I'm wrong. I'd love to see them go at it, get some goals. But my guess is, based on the way the roster is configured right now, it's going to be a lot of guys behind the ball.
Yeah, counter. I mean, it doesn't have to be a pretty strategy to start. I mean, honestly, if we want to, the whole idea is to get to the playoffs and succeed. And I don't think we need to develop a playing style necessarily just yet until we really get like the high end DPs that are gonna push that style forward. So, I mean, I'm definitely in the camp of let's sit behind the ball and counter as best we can. I think that's kind of why we got why we tried to draft Lamar, who's missing. Where's Roland? And but I mean, if we have to like play like Victor Ulloa and Eric Alexander, that's not necessarily a lineup that's
that's a name you were
conclusive.
forgetting.
Yeah, I know. I pulled up Wikipedia, baby. Woo! That's not necessarily, I think they're two good players, but they're not necessarily known for their goal scoring or their chance creating abilities. So, yeah, if we have to rely on them, I think that might be a little challenging.
Yeah.
And the way I look at it is, I mean, the first few matches, it's going to be a learning curve no matter what. So, I mean, you're going to find out what works, find out what doesn't. Hopefully a lot of it works. It might not, but we
Sitting
shall
behind the
see.
balls worked for Koch
Yeah.
teams in the past.
Yeah, that's one-offs. That's not every week,
Dude, let's put Austin Berry back in the uniform. We'll throw him back there as a third center back. We golden, baby.
Hey,
We need more center backs.
Bring back
who-
Tyler Pollock.
well, bring back Delbridge, man. He's been playing a lot
Yes.
down in the A-League.
Bring him back. I miss him.
He's played every minute so far for Melbourne City in the A-League this year through 10 games last I checked. And
Yeah.
he's actually got long hair now. Well, not long, longer than what we're used to. It's hard. I don't even recognize him on the pitch. But He's not
I'm
coming
sure.
back.
I'm not sure they're doing very good down there, though, are they?
Nah, they're like 5th out of 10.
They're 4th. Okay, I see that. They're 6 points back first.
Yeah. So, yeah, but he's playing a lot, which is the reason why he went down there. So good for him.
Yeah.
Although I did see Australia just recently lost in their Asian Cup match to Jordan, I believe. So, yeah, obviously Harrison did not get the call up to the Australian national team, which is what he was hoping for. But hey,
Shocker.
you never know. You never know. Yeah, so last time we did Extra Time, Manchester United were coached by Jose Mourinho. Hey, yes, he's gone. And look what happened. Amazing.
That sound was nobody caring.
Yeah, you're right. Maybe that's a good cue to wrap it up. Thanks for watching Extra Time. Make sure you always tweet us, hashtag CST Extra Time on Monday evenings. And we will see you all later.